XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Mike.
And I'm Justin.
And this is episode 43, The Sounds of the FM Towns. We are tackling a very, very obscure Japanese computer system and console. This is a dual spotlight.
Yep.
And we're going to be talking about the FM Towns and also the FM Towns Marty. Now, if you have no idea what these are, prepare to learn.
You're not alone. I had no idea until Mike was like, hey, we should do something on the FM Towns. And I went, what's that?
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. But we have an exciting announcement. This is a very early announcement. Episode 50, right now we're at 43. Episode 50 will be a fan pick episode. So we're celebrating our 50th episode by having you guys pick all the tracks, whatever you want to hear. We're going to be picking a total of, I guess, 10 tracks with an intro, so 11 tracks.
Right.
And so the deadline to get those tracks in is March 15th of 2020. Speaking of which,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, yeah. So that is the name of the game. The only rule that we have is pick a song that we have never played on the show before. It could be from the PC, it could be from consoles, it could be from handhelds. It does not matter as long as we have not played it.
Yep, and as long as it is a video game.
Correct. And we will respond to your requests when we start picking them, and we'll have you give like a testimonial if you want. You could do either audio, or you could just type something up real quick and send it to us. We just, want to know why you picked the track. If we have any extra tracks, we apologize in advance. We'll, of course, take those extra tracks and hold on to them for a future episode. And this is not just patrons. Anybody can do this.
Yep.
So if you're a regular listener to the show, you're not a patron, feel free to send us a email. And all of you can send us an email at xvgmradio@gmail.com. And that's how you get your submissions in.
No more than one submission per person, please.
Yes, yeah, only one submission per person. Good eye on that one. We initially came in on a song that is actually the console intro music, like when you boot up like the FM Towns Marty, for example.
Yeah, similar to our PS1 episode where
Yeah.
we started off with like the
PlayStation chime.
I can't even. I was going to try to recreate it with my mouth, and then I realized it's a dumb idea.
And then the second song that we came in on right after that, which followed it up, was a very heavy, headbanging, fuzzy track called Attack the Zoldazant Bass. And that was from a FM Towns exclusive game called Altinex, and that came out exclusively on the FM Towns, not the FM Towns Marty, but the FM Towns in 1997. It's a track by a composer named Jiru Run.
Yeah, exclusively.
Yeah, exclusively. So what do you think of this track? Before we get into the consoles, what do you think of the track?
There's a few things that I noticed about it that I found relatively interesting. The first was that I feel like that synth rhythm guitar kind of drowns out almost everything else going on here.
Yeah, it's very loud and very fuzzy.
Very, very fuzzy. Like, I feel like it was wandering around Yoshi's Island and it got dizzy.
Touching fuzzies.
Yep. But other than that, I like the fact that I sort of pull out different pieces of this track. So there's a lot going on here, which I thought was really cool. Like, distinctly, I heard drums, I heard a bass, I could hear the main melody once I sort of tuned out that rhythm guitar, and then I could hear like two other, I don't know if they were like synth guitars or keys or what they were, but they sound like two other synths going on. So like right there, it's fairly impressive when looking at like any of the other consoles that we've covered or that we've talked about. Like there's a lot of voices going on there. Now, whether or not this is Redbook audio or this is being produced by the sound chip,
This is definitely the sound chip.
That's my assumption.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I was impressed. Because I mean, if this is Redbook audio, then I mean it's Redbook audio of a MIDI file, which is just weird. But
that would be weird. Yeah.
But so that's at least 6 voices that I'm hearing there, which is really cool. And I might have missed some because, like I said, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I do agree with you that lead melody from the guitars just completely drowns everything out. And I think the quality of the recording itself, I mean, I searched high and low for all different like versions of this song.
Yeah, we listened to 2 different versions before we put this together.
Yeah, and every single version that I found was kind of fuzzy, so not much you could do about that. But the composer, Jiru Run, is not that well known. It basically did other games in the Altinex series like Kamui. Reflex, I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if that's part of it, but the Altinex series is a trilogy of games. The second one was I believe it was like a remake. The games were developed by Satoshi Yoshida, who later went on to form a group called Sitter Skane? Yeah, I don't know. Sitter or Siter, S-I-T-E-R, Skane, S-K-A-I-N. So there's a follow-up that came out years later, which is basically a remake of Altinex called Altinex Second. And that has like all like new arranged stuff and everything for the soundtrack. But of course, we're not tackling that here because this is specifically for the FM Towns.
Yeah.
Reflex and Kamui are actually sequels to the original Altinex game. So there's Altinex, the remake Altinex Second, and then Reflex and Kamui. So yeah, pretty nifty. But they're it's a shmup, shooter, shoot 'em up, whatever you want to call it. Pretty generic stuff. One thing that's really cool is your character is like this giant mech. He looks really tiny on the screen, but he gets like a saber, like a laser saber. So he can either shoot from afar and blow up the bad guys or use like a laser saber. So
Neat.
There's some really cool like effects from after you like slice an enemy open, for example. Like there's some particle effects of like some of the machines that you destroyed, like kind of drifting apart or whatever, little like fragments. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
But yeah, Jiroudon has only done work with this series, from what I understand. So the FM Towns and the FM Marty, what are they and why do you care? Well, they are both a computer and a console. So I'll let Justin tell you a little bit about the FM Towns, and then I'll talk about the FM Towns Marty.
Yeah. So the FM Towns was an actual PC. It was an alternative to the other PCs that were coming out back then, like the PC-88, PC-98, and all that kind of stuff.
Sharp X68000, right.
This was created by Fujitsu. The FM in FM Towns stands for Fujitsu Micro.
Okay.
And that's, I believe, still what they're called. Most people know them as Fujitsu, but I think they're actually Fujitsu Micro. Mm-hmm. The FM Towns itself lasted from 1989 until it was discontinued in 1997. Mm-hmm. So when it launched, it was actually priced out at about what would be $3,000 in U.S. money.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, at the time, which means now it would have been even more.
Well, my first PC was like $5,000, I think, and that was
really?
an IBM Aptiva. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, pre-built PCs were, at that time, were actually the standard. I don't know many people who were building their own PCs at the time.
Right.
I feel like I got more into that in the 90s. So
right.
That actually makes sense. I mean, you can build a good PC for under $1,000, but back then, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. So it was basically a standard PC, as I was alluding to earlier. It came in both tower and desktop models later, but the OS on it was not like Windows or Mac OS or Linux. It was Towns OS, which was actually built on top of MS-DOS and the FarLap DOS extender, which if you know what DOS is, the FarLap DOS extender is just like an extension that you can install for DOS, and then they built this entire graphical user interface on top of it and called it Towns OS.
That's cool.
So I mentioned what the FM in FM Micro stands for. Towns is actually, they called it the FM Towns because the code name of the unit, as Fujitsu Micro was making it, was TOWNES, named after the 1964 Nobel Prize winner Charles Towns. Oh. And then when they decided to release it, they kept Towns, but they took the E out. It was one of the earliest to boot the operating system from a CD. Both Amiga and Mac did this in 1991, and the ISO standard that we have now for like booting an operating system off of a CD wasn't actually set until 1994. So all things considered, this is a pretty cool computer.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was a few years ahead of other people trying to do the same thing.
Wow.
So there was a minimal DOS system that allows for the CD-ROM drive to be accessed and is contained in a system ROM. This, coupled with Fujitsu's decision to charge only a very small licensing fee for the inclusion of a bare-bones Towns OS on game CDs, allowed game developers to make games bootable directly from the CD-ROM without needing to actually start the OS. So you could pop the CD in like a game console, basically. Pop the CD in, start it up, and then just go right into your game.
That's really cool.
Launch it. Yeah. I mentioned earlier the operating system on it. I mentioned Linux. Many Linux distributions have actually been ported to the FM Towns, so you can run the FM Towns in Linux. I don't know that it'll run all that great these days.
That's crazy.
Because there were a few different CPU models and speeds that they had, ranging from in the early days of it was around 16 to 20 megahertz. Ultimately, they ended up using Intel chips in later models, like the Intel 486DX4, which was actually 100 megahertz, so it's a lot faster, but by today's standards, that's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
So as far as the sound on these things go, it had the ability to play audio CDs, much like your PlayStation. The FM Towns had 2 chips in it, actually. There was the Ricoh RF5C68 and the Yamaha YM2612 sound chips.
2612.
2612, yeah.
Yep, that's the same chip that's in the Genesis.
I was just going to say, I think that's the same one as Genesis.
Yep.
So the RF5C68 allowed for 8 PCM voices, and as some of us probably already know, the YM2612, also known as the OPN2, allowed for 6 FM voices with 4 operators per channel and 2 interval timers. Both of these chips, just as an aside, were used in Sega System 18 and Sega System 32 arcade board.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So when we come back for our next break, I'll dive into the FM Towns Marty. Let's get into our first track, which is actually a Capcom song. It's by Masaaki Izutani, Toshio Kajino, Shun Nishigaki, Ryo Mizutsuki, Nobuhiro Ouchi, and they were the original composers. The arranger on this one is Setsuo Yamamoto, and the game is called Muscle Bomber, also known as Saturday Night Slam Masters. And this came out on the arcade and the FM Towns in 1993. It also came out on the Super NES and Genesis in 1994. The track we're hearing is Tokyo Stage. Welcome back to XVGM Radio, and welcome back to our spotlight on the FM Towns and FM Towns Marty. The track we just heard was from a game called Muscle Bomber, which is also known as Saturday Night Slam Masters in the US. That was released in arcades and the system that we're talking about today, the FM Towns Marty, and that came out in 1993 on those systems, and then it came out on the SNES and the Genesis in 94.
Nice.
So I kind of bring the SNES involved into this, mostly due to Setsuo Yamamoto. So the other composers, most of them basically just worked on like sound design for various different Capcom games. Ryo Mizutsuki specifically worked on Cadillacs and Dinosaurs and Harmonia as well in 2016, doing background music, which was a newer game. And then Nobuhiro Ouchi did a bunch of work in sound for various different games, a lot of like the games for the WWE, like WWE 2K14, 13, and 2K15.
Still doing stuff.
Yeah, still doing stuff. Last game was Earth Defense Force Iron Rain in 2019. Started off though with Capcom with Super Street Fighter 2 in 93. Did sound design on Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, all different kinds of stuff for them. And just to touch on the other composers real quick before we talk about Sasuo Yamamoto, Masaaki Izutani worked on Three Wonders in 1991, which I believe was a quiz game for Capcom. And then followed it up with Captain Commando in the same year. Their latest game is Zero Gunner 2 in 2001. And right before that, they did Cannon Spike, which was another Capcom game. Toshio Kajino did a lot of audio, starting with Final Fight in 1990, where they contributed music to that. UN Squadron, they did sound design on that. Super Ghouls and Ghosts and Super Street Fighter 2. Also did sound design on The Punisher, and pretty much almost all their later like records were first like sound design. Stuff like Alien vs. Predator in 94, the beat 'em up, and Resident Evil 2, they did sound cooperate. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, then their latest game that they were credited for is Mario Superstar Baseball in 2005. Shun Nishigaki, same thing, basically started with Captain Commando, doing sound subtitles, or it says and sound sub. I'm not sure what that means, but that was in 91, and then followed up with, again, Super Street Fighter 2, Punisher, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, they were a composer on, X-Men Children of the Atom, the list goes on and on, but they're a heavy hitter. They've done stuff like Resident Evil 2 in 98, Dino Crisis in 99. So anyways, the arranger on this one is Setsuo Yamamoto, and I bring him up because this definitely reeks of his sound and style. Those other composers, a little bit, just because of the affiliation of the games that they worked on, but when I hear this track, I definitely hear Setsuo. I thought there was some really cool panning effects with the stereo, so if you didn't listen to this with with headphones, definitely go back and listen to it, because there's a lot of really cool like panning effects, especially with that guitar. And there's even the shamisen. We haven't talked about the shamisen in a while.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
Been a hot minute for the shamisen, but yeah, there was a faint lull of a shamisen in the background. Did you catch that?
I did not, actually.
No? Yeah, you gotta listen to it again because it's got like a faint lull. It's really subtle. You can hear it if you listen in the background, but just that strumming guitar. I love the way the strings sound on this one, like it's very like fast jazz oriented.
That's fair.
Yeah, that strumming sound that they kind of create. I love when developers create music where they're strumming, where you can actually hear chords being played, or you could hear like strings. The strings being played. That's really cool. It's a cool touch, especially with like this kind of style. I know it's MIDI, but it just adds such a nice flavor.
That was my next question, actually. Again, because we can play Redbook audio on these, was this MIDI or was this actually recorded? And there were some things that made me think MIDI, but there were some things like that bass that I don't know, maybe I was just lost in it or something, but it sounded pretty live to me. Like it sounded like a slap bass. And I mean, there are plenty of consoles that use samples and that do other things that get the same sort of sound when you know that it's not Redbook audio. But that was sort of the biggest piece to me, and I probably didn't notice the shamisen because I was so sort of lost in the bass groove.
I'm going to say this was Redbook audio.
Yeah.
I think it was. I don't think it was utilizing the Yamaha sound chip or that Rico sound chip. I think it was predominantly Redbook audio.
Okay.
And I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong about that. But when you listen to the Yamaha sound chip, it doesn't have really the ability to do that sample.
Right. What about that Rico? You get, 8 PCM voices?
Well, okay, yeah, let's talk about the Rico. Actually, we'll talk about the FM Towns real quick, and then we'll jump back into talking about the actual games for Muscle Bomber. So the FM Towns Marty, which is a console, not a PC, the Marty remained backwards compatible with previous FM Towns titles. So if you played the games on the FM Towns, on the PC, you could play them on the FM Towns Marty, which is really cool. Developed in 1991, or at At least that's when they started to work on it. This console was available between 1993 and 95, so very short lifespan, and was approximately $700 US, at least back then. The price was lowered when they re-released the system as the Marty 2. They made another version of it.
Okay.
They also made a version called the Car Marty, which was available for your car. You could buy a car with it, either
you could have it installed, and people in the backseat can play games.
Yep. So the Marty 2, and the Car Marty all used an Intel 80386SX as far as the CPU goes. It's a 16 megahertz processor. The audio chip was the same Yamaha YM2612 that the Genesis used, as well as the FM Towns. However, it also utilized the Ricoh RF5C68 and Redbook audio, thanks to the CD drive. So
it pulled that from the Towns as well.
Exactly, right. So no change there. So as far as whether or not this is the Ricoh, I don't believe so. From what I understand about the Ricoh's chip, it does allow for PCM samples, like PCM voices, but I don't know. I don't think that it would be able to run it like that, like the full song.
Yeah.
'Cause that's a lot of PCM samples, and generally PCM samples are used for little bits, little parts, not the whole, just one little sound font. But I don't know.
Unless you're an SNES, in which case everything's a PCM sample.
Yeah, true. I don't know. That's a good question. And I wasn't really able to find too much information on that. As far as a breakdown of what sounds like what. So I'm just going based off of my knowledge on the Genesis.
Yeah.
The controller was similar to the NES and the TurboGrafx controller. It had a D-pad, it had the select and a run button instead of a start button, and it had the A and B buttons set. However, it also had one more button just above the two face buttons, almost like a shoulder button, and that was used in some games to change the resolution, which was pretty neat.
Oh.
Yeah. Video with resolutions maxed out for digital display at 720 by 480, and the system supported composite as well as S-video. There was also a port of Super Street Fighter 2 that made its way to the console. Probably the most processing power heavy for the system. You're probably wondering to yourself, well, wait a minute, Street Fighter, that's got to have 6 buttons. Well, they did come out with a 6-button controller to use, which was predominantly used with Street Fighter.
Only for that game.
Yeah, only for that game. So either Capcom came out with it or Fujitsu did, but
yeah. Oh, neat.
Pretty cool. So Muscle Bomber is a Capcom game, of course. It's a fighting game. I would imagine that it would also use that 6-button controller, if I recall.
Oh,
who knows? I believe that they came out in the same year, so there's a really strong possibility.
This is a Capcom game, and Capcom's especially if Capcom made that controller.
Yeah, it's a possibility. But this game is a wrestling game, fighting game, where you play as various different, crazy, wacky wrestlers. But I would say the most notable is Mike Hagar from Final Fight. So this actually takes place before he becomes the mayor of Metro City.
So it's a prequel.
Yeah. So pretty neat. His daughter Jessica from Final Fight would sometime enter the ring to celebrate with him when he wins a match, which is pretty cool. There's other characters that are related to the Street Fighter 2 universe, such as Gunlock, who is Guile's brother, apparently. And also, there's a character that looks like Alex from Street Fighter 3, who is Biff Slamkovich. I swear that's Slamkovich.
Okay.
Slamkovich, that's his name. Yeah. So he is the main protagonist of the game, but he's a Russian wrestler who trained under Hagar, and his rival is Gunlock. There's a couple others, but it is predominantly an all-male affair for the wrestling characters. Later on, there is a sequel called Ring of Destruction, and that one had I think a German female wrestler, but she was masquerading as a guy or something like that. And then it turns out in the end that she was a girl. I don't know, it's weird, but yeah, so that's the game. But yeah, Saturday Night Slam Masters was the first game, and then they re-released it as Muscle Bomber Duo, if I recall, and then Ring of Destruction was the final game. So
very cool.
Yeah, pretty neat.
Well, so next up we will hear an FM Towns game that was called Mobile Suit Gundam Hyper Classic Operation. This came out in 1992, and the track is just OPN 1, and it was composed by Ryu Umemoto. Welcome back. That was OPN1 off of Mobile Suit Gundam Hyper Classic Operation, an FM Towns game that came out in 1992, composed by Ryu Umemoto.
I don't think he needs any introduction. We did an entire episode on him.
Yes.
In memory of him. That was episode 9. Yep. So we don't need to talk about Ryu, but tell me about this game.
So, as some of the other games that I've talked about from the Gundam universe, this is about giant robots.
Giant enemy robots.
Yes.
And also giant helper robots.
Yes. Yeah. Giant all sorts of robots.
Giant all sorts of robots.
But it's a turn-based sci-fi strategy game that mostly focuses on the battles between, as is most of the story of Gundam, the fight between the Earth Federation and Zeon. So this is, if you know your Gundam, this is fairly early on in the timeline, as we are still just with the Earth Federation and the Zeon forces. So there's 2 different campaigns in the game. There's 0079 and 0087, which correspond to the years in which 2 of the major wars in the Gundam universe took place. 79 is, I believe, Mobile Suit Gundam, and 87 is Double Zeta. So you can either go through the battles of each of the campaign in like a very linear fashion, which is your campaign mode, or you can actually pick which battles you want to do in like a scenario mode. So instead of like scenario mode, you're not playing an overarching story, you're just picking sort of like what things you want to do.
Right.
But so you can customize the different pilots for the Gundam, and you can customize little bits and pieces of the Gundam. But overall, like the main highlights here, turn-based sci-fi strategy game. So
sure.
Yeah, so I was going to compare it to like Warcraft, but not quite.
Okay. So it's like Warcraft with Gundams. But
sort of
not really.
And in space.
Okay. Well, isn't Gundams like normally in space?
Yeah.
In space. Okay.
Space.
Well, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I feel like you're going crazy with Gundam.
Yeah, I mean...
Crazy with Gundam. Are you like actually like watching the series lately, or...
No, I haven't had time.
It's gonna be one of those things, because you've been picking tracks from Gundam, where it's gonna creep up on you and you're gonna be like, I need to watch like all the Gundam. And then
Probably.
I won't hear from you for like 5 months. And you just be like, oh man, I just binged like all the Gundam.
I mean, I've watched all of a handful of the series, like in the beginning of the timeline. The last one that I was watching was Double Zeta, and I think, only just ever so slightly into that one, and haven't gotten much farther.
You know, it's a shame that we're both married, because we have the ultimate pickup line with Gundam. You'd be like, yo girl, is that a gun? 'Cause damn. That just hurts to say.
You're giving me a migraine.
So I was really digging this track. I was really enjoying it. It's got that Japanese action music sound to it, but I was digging that driving bass, and I like the fuzziness here. It's
really
it's present again, but it's a lot less. Like, all the instrumentation is a lot better in this than in the opening track with Altonex.
That's fair. I mean, this was one that I've listened to a number of times just because I really like it.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, but like I listened to a couple of songs on the soundtrack when I got to this one. I was just like, I'm gonna play this one. I listened to a couple more and I wasn't impressed, so I was just like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with that one.
No, this is a good head bobber. I mean, like when you've got that
yes, exactly.
Like it's a good head bobbing track.
That's what drew me in. And then as you're listening to it, like you mentioned the fuzziness, and to me, it doesn't really break my enjoyment of the song so much.
I agree.
But it definitely stands out in an odd way.
Yeah.
But I don't really know how to describe it, because like I said, I agree with you. Like, I don't dislike it.
Sure.
But it does kind of, if it were more natural, or if it were Redbook audio, it might feel a little bit different. I don't know how much that would change the song.
That's true. It looks like we are getting a call on the request hotline. Not the Patreon request hotline, but just in general request hotline. This person probably thought that it was episode 50 now, but it's not. So let's take that call. Caller, you are on the air with XVGM Radio. Who are we speaking with, and what can we do for you?
Hello, this is Halcyon, ruler of the Fourth Empire.
Hi, Halcyon. How are you?
Can we do something for you?
I've laid waste to most of the star systems in your galaxy, but your show amuses me. I'm willing to grant you a quick and painless death if you can play me a track from Galaxy Force 2.
That's not really how this works. You don't threaten the hosts with violence.
Yeah, like if you want something, maybe don't kill us?
That is amenable. I will think about it.
All right. Well, I guess we'll play a track from Galaxy Force 2. This came out on the arcade in 1988, but this is the exclusive FM Towns Marty version, which came out in 1991. This song is called Alone Fighter, and it's by Yoshitoku Tsunahara. That's who arranged it. The original track is by Koichi Namki and Katsuhiro Hayashi. Welcome back from that awesome freestyle jam. That was Galaxy Force 2, which came out in the arcade in 1988, came out in the FM Towns Marty exclusively in 1991. And that track was called Alone Fighter. And that was arranged by Yoshitoku Tsunahara. And the original track was by Koichi Namiki and Katsuhiro Hayashi.
Yeah.
What do you think of this one?
I have mixed feelings about this one.
I really, don't break my heart, Justin.
I really, really want to like this one, and I really do like a lot. Like I love the twinkly synth.
Yep.
I love the clapping. I love that dance beat.
Yes.
But when that wind instrument came in,
oh really? The wind instrument did it for you?
It made me go from like this really cool, like dancey, almost club type song to like, who's playing an ocarina? Like. It came out of nowhere for me, and I was just like completely thrown off. But overall, I really do like the track. One of my notes is the trumpets, a la Mambo No. 5.
Yeah,
the trumpets.
My goodness. So this is obviously freestyle music.
Oh yeah,
which was popular in the mid to late 80s, and even kind of more so in the early 90s as well. I think that's right around the time when it was dying out.
Yeah.
But freestyle originated from the like New York sound. It's a very Latin sound.
Yep.
And so those horns that you're talking about, the dun 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 dun, those are very, very clearly freestyle, and the entire track builds like a 12-inch mix. If you've ever like went out and sought out like dance tracks from the 80s, a lot of songs have like 12-inch mixes, which is basically where they build up the track for an extra like minute or two, and then maybe they'll throw in like an interlude somewhere in the track where it's like there's a little bit more going on, or they'll kind of harken back to the chorus, or they'll repeat the chorus towards the end a few more times. They basically do everything they can to make the track as long as possible. So with this song, that's very clear. I mean, right from the beginning, it's a track that builds. What they do is they add each instrument in over time. You know, it starts off with the twinkliness, and then once the twinkliness kind of builds, then it starts adding in the bass line and the drums, and it just keeps building and building until you get the horns that drop in, and basically it's like when the beat drops, like that's when the song comes alive. So yeah, I love freestyle music. It is a guilty pleasure of mine. It is
that makes sense.
So good. I just really love the dance vibe from most freestyle music, and I love the melodies and the harmonies. They're all like my bread and butter. Like melody is like key for me. So if I'm listening to a song that doesn't have melody, it better have really good groove.
Yep.
And what I like about freestyle is they usually have a little bit of both.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say you get some really good melody, especially from like the freestyle that goes on, and then you got to have a good groove to drive when that's not happening. So
sure.
yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. If you like this type of stuff, check out other freestyle music stuff like Stevie B, George Lamond as well. His first album is really good. There's other artists like Johnny O. Tons and tons of really good groups. There was a lot of female freestyle artists as well. Just awesome music, and it kind of takes you back to the 80s. It's like this is what they played in the clubs before they played the boo digga digga, which basically killed the freestyle movement. Once that kind of movement came in, freestyle was kind of dead and buried a long time before that. But freestyle was definitely dead and buried for at least the Latin clubs. Once that type of music came in, and so freestyle's kind of had like a revitalization a little bit too. This is one of the rare examples of a freestyle song in VGM. Like I couldn't tell you what other VGM tracks had like blatant freestyle, but yeah,
I would imagine some of the more music based, like I don't know if I want to say rhythm games, but like some of the more music based games, I would imagine have more of that stuff in it, like stuff like your Rhythm Heaven, your Parappa, your I'm not going to say Rock Band because that's just...
Sure.
But you get the idea.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Like that.
Yeah, basically like the 80s and 90s, especially like the late 90s, like DDR. But even when DDR was out, like freestyle was done. That was more like the Eurobeat type stuff that was coming
that's
out.
Fair.
Yeah,
that's
a lot of Eurobeat, Eurodance. So
yeah.
All right, so this game is a port of the Galaxy Force 2 game, which came out in the arcade. The song itself, if you listen to the original Alone Fighter, it picks up from when that wind instrument comes in, with that that is where the song starts. So all that other stuff for the freestyle like bit is all like added in.
Nice.
So
That's really cool.
it's pretty cool that they did that. So I don't know. Maybe Yoshitoku Tsunohara is a big fan of freestyle. I assume so. He's only done 2 games, this and Painter Momopai. The rest of the songs on the soundtrack, not as good. I mean, not bad, just not as good as this. This was a banger. So Koichi Namiki was one of the original composers. Started off with Robot Battler in 1991. Did some other Sega games like Bonanza Brothers in 91 and other stuff like Teddy Boy Blues in 92. Did Guitar Freaks in 1999 for Konami, as well as the second mix version. And their final game that they were credited for was Galaxy Force 2, the Sega Ages version, which was like a redone version.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which came out on, I think, maybe the Saturn and maybe the PS2 as well. But Magi Death Fight Maho Gakuken is their final game. The final composer on this one, Katsuhiro Hayashi, started off with Rambo First Blood Part 2, which I believe was on the Master System in 1986. Then followed up with Quartet, which was a Master System port of the original Quartet game. Fantastic soundtrack on Quartet. Followed it up with Heavyweight Champ in 87, Gain Ground in 88 for the Sega Genesis and arcade probably, and then Forgotten Worlds in 92. They jumped over and worked with Capcom on that one. Just a bunch of other like Japan only games. Their final game was School Days HQ in 2010, where they're labeled as music.
Nice.
Yeah. So what do you got for us?
So I'm actually going to take us all the way back to episode 2.
To episode Dos, yes.
Episode 2. That was our focus on Toa Plan. We played a track from Twin Cobra on that one. I'm going to play you the FM Towns arranged version here. So this is Twin Cobra, came out in the arcade in 1987, FM Towns in 1994. The track is Suguru, BGM 4-9. This is the arranged version, and it was by Takahiro Kuribayashi and Masaaki Yoneyama. Welcome back. That was Tsuguru, BGM 4-9 arranged from Twin Cobra, the FM Towns 1994 release, but it was also originally released on the arcade in 1987. The composers on this were Takahiro Kuribayashi and Masaki Yoneyama.
Oh, I remember. It was just yesterday, Justin, when we were picking tracks for our Toa Plan episode, and you picked a little track called Suguru.
Yeah, I guess I have a thing for this track.
It's a good song.
Yeah.
I dig the synths on this. They're very kind of floaty, but at the same time, like very staccato.
Yes, this reminds me a lot of some of the tracks that I used to like dancing to in some of the old DDR games.
Okay.
Very, very similar as far as the sound goes.
Going from one side of the dance spectrum to the other, I suppose.
Yeah.
From the previous track.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What's funny about this regarding the whole Suguru thing is I completely forgot that I had picked Suguru from Twin Cobra in the original episode. And I mean, we have a list of songs played, and I just failed to even check it because in no way in my mind was this something that I ever picked before.
Right.
And then you were like, oh, you're playing Suguru again? And it's like, wait, what? Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
It's the arranged version. It's different.
Yeah, I mean, that version that we played was on the NES, too.
Exactly,
So, it's not that big of a deal. But this version does still have something to offer.
Oh, yeah.
I was definitely feeling those synths in this one. I feel like it was a little bouncier, too.
Yeah, no, very, very much so.
I think the
For
instrumentation has a
arranged
lot
thing.
to do with that.
Yep. So,
Well, we talked all about Twin Cobra on our Toll Plan episode.
True, so
go back and check that out.
I will reference that for anyone who wants to know more about Twin Cobra. I mean, it's a top-down, vertically scrolling shoot 'em up.
Yes, similar to like 1942.
Yeah. I mean, you're in a helicopter, you can shoot things, you can drop bombs. We talked about it already. The composers on this are actually different from the composers that you will find in the Toa Plan episode. So just to go over these folks, Takahiro Kuribayashi only has one audio credit to their name, and that is this game, Twin Cobra for 1994. They did sound and music. The rest of their credits are all programming and engineering.
Okay.
Masaki Yoneyama, same thing. Only one audio credit, and that is for Twin Cobra in 1994. So, not really a whole lot to talk about here.
No. I don't know if this is Redbook audio, though. I mean, like, Galaxy Force 2 is definitely Redbook audio.
Yeah.
But this...
I think this might be.
Okay.
This sounded too much like, sort of like a dance song. Like I said, it sounds a lot like some of the stuff that was in the DDR games early on.
Kind of like that Muscle Bomber track in the sense that you don't really know if it's Redbook audio or not. It kind of skirts that line between like MIDI or PCM sample-based music.
Yep. Because, I mean, it could be that, or it could just be that they're using some synths and it's Redbook audio.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. That's a possibility. Yeah. Interesting.
Question for the ages.
Yes. So I guess we'll move into our next track then. Nice and quick break here. So we're going to be talking about a game called Psychic Detective Series Volume 5 Nightmare. This came out on the FM Towns Marty in 1991. It came out on the PC 98 and 95, and it came out on Windows in 1998. Huh. This track is called Track 2, just because we couldn't find a better track name for it, and it's by Yasuhito Saito. Hey, you are back to XVGM Radio, and that was a little game called Psychic Detective Series Volume 5, Nightmare. That came out on the FM Towns Marty in 1991. It came out on the PC 98 in 95, and it came out on Windows in 1998. That was called Track 2, and it's by Yasuhito Saito. I really love this track. It is a really cool, pleasant mix of like a Japanese kind of style, almost like a Japanese ballad, like a pop ballad. But then you get those guitars that come in, those very Capcom synth kind of style guitars. And if you listen to this track, you get a lot of really cool mixes of music, but for the most part, it stays predominantly like a Japanese, like J-rock, J-pop kind of sound to it. But I love the piano solo, and I love the guitar solo that comes in later on.
Yeah.
All the instrumentation here is phenomenal. It's all, of course, MIDI based or PCM sample-based. So it's just really well done. I don't know, what do you think of this one?
I liked it a lot. So for one, we definitely took the mood and brought the mood down a little bit. Not like killed the mood, but we went from all this like crazy dancey stuff to now we're doing some chill, like guitar solo,
thoughtful ballad, like a thought-provoking ballad.
Yeah. But I dig it. For one, I feel like it breaks up all the other stuff that we're doing.
For sure.
And for two, it's refreshing to have more of like a melodically focused track to just kind of chill out to.
Yeah,
I dug it.
Yeah. So the Psychic Detective series has had a lot of volumes to it, but this one in particular is the 5th entry. Very similar to the predecessors, it is a Japanese-style adventure game, and it's got screens that are from a first-person perspective, very similar to stuff like Phoenix Wright. And you'll have like different conversations with people, and there'll be different things in the plot that will require like events to trigger. And there's not any kind of inventory management or puzzles in this one. It's more like interacting with objects, point and click, and doing like commands like do this or do that, that sort of thing. The plot on this one is you take on the role of psychic detective Katsuya Furuyagi, and he's about to settle down after going through all these various different crazy psychic detective journeys that he's been doing.
Was he just about to retire? Was he a day from retirement?
For the most part, he's going to settle down with his love interest, Rieka. Then he starts getting these nightmares that start haunting him. He sees this young woman who is like locked up in a secluded castle. She's begging for help. One night, the nightmare is slightly different. The woman who's in this dream that he has, or this nightmare, turns into a creature just as Furuyagi enters the castle. So he begins to wonder if this is like real or not. Of course, you need to play to find out. So it's a little bit weird as far as the explanation, but it looks cool. There's like intro cutscenes and stuff. I believe it's got like an anime style like cutscenes, but most of the visual style is all like anime based, but then they'll cut to like houses and locations and different places that take on a little bit more of a realistic look, or like a more realistic graphical look to it, like beds and bedrooms and stuff like that.
Like scenery.
Yeah,
really.
Scenery basically. But then you'll have like shots where like your girlfriend's cooking, and you'll have other shots that you can kind of bounce around to. So it's pretty interesting. So let's talk about the composer. Yasuhito Saito started working with Zuno Senken Gaig, which came out in 1985. He was the sound composer on that. Also did a game called Volgard in 85 and Layla in 86. That was the Famicom exclusive game. Then they came out with sound effects in a game called Produce in 1987. They did Razanber in 1990, which was also an FM Towns game. Psychic Detective Series Volume 3, Aya, which came out in 1990. They did the sequel to Razanber 2 in 1991. Did a game called Gullclite TDF2 in 1991. Then they did Razanber 3 in 92. Vajra in 93, and then Psychic Detective Series Volume 4, Orgel. Their final game was Vajra 2 in 1994. Now, as far as Psychic Detective Series Volume 5, it's a little bit unclear because this timeline doesn't add up. And this is why it was confusing, because Psychic Detective Series Volume 5 was released on November 27th, 1991. Psychic Detective Series Volume 3 and Volume 4 came out after that. So, again, it's very unclear when this game came out. Yeah. So, let's move into your next game. What do you got for us?
So, I have a game called Mad Stalker Full Metal Force. This was released in the arcade, on the FM Towns, and the Sharp X68000, all in 1994. The track you're going to hear is called Player Select, and it was composed by Keiichi Yonao. Welcome back. That was Mad Stalker Full Metal Force, the arcade FM Towns and Sharp X68000 release from 1994. The track was Player Select, and the composer was Keiichi Yonao.
Yo, that was so funky.
Yo, super funky.
So good. I was digging that bass.
Yeah.
All over the place.
Slap bass.
For days.
For days.
Yes.
All over the place. I loved it. It was... You summed it up right there with just calling it funky. That was the reason that I picked it.
Even the lead synths, that they definitely took a backseat to that bass line.
Oh, yeah.
But even those felt very like sprinkly. You know, just like
like kind of twangy. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dun, dun. But they almost like faded towards the end of each like note press. It's pretty cool. It's a neat little track. So I think I've heard of this one. I think it's like a mech action game, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Almost positive I played this on Sharp X68000.
Yeah. So on Sharp X68000, it was actually called Mad Stalker Full Metal Forth. Forth as opposed to FORCE.
Okay.
And it looks like it's a bit of a translation issue. Yeah, on the Sharp X68000, it was Full Metal Forth. On the FM Towns, it was Full Metal Force. On the PC Engine, it was also Full Metal Force.
Okay.
So it looks like there was just some translation issue. They probably put that word in English, and it looks very similar when done in like katakana or hiragana.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up where you play as a policeman who is using what's called a slave gear mecha suit known as Hound Dog.
Oh, I got one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog.
Stop.
So there's 6 stages of varying themes, all set in this city of Artemis City, which is where you are a policeman. And you are trying to defeat a rogue slave gear model called Rising Dog. And then also trying to stop a rogue artificial intelligence named Omega.
Okay, so crazy groovy bassline. Awesome, neat little action beat 'em up game. Tell me about this composer.
Mr. Keiichi Yonao started doing music composition in 1990 with a game called Neural Gear. That's another Sharp X68000 game. And they have jumped around doing a number of things. So most of these are actually music composition, which is great. Ruin Kami no Isan in 1993, Kakuto Hao Densetsu Algunos in 1994, Rema the Truth in 1996, Asuka 120% Excellent Burning Fest in 1997, and then kind of ending for a brief time in 2001 with Kaien Seibo the Virgin on Megiddo. And then they, like I said, they kind of went away for 10 years and came back in 2011 doing sound design on Strania, the Stella Machina, and then came back to do composition and arranging for a number of games, most notably Galgun Double Piece and Mr. Happiness Edition, both which were released in 2016, As Your Striker Gunvolt 2 in 2016, Galgun 2 in 2018, and most recently Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger 9.
Oh. Okay, so still in the business.
Yeah. In 2019. So
Okay, then.
Pretty cool.
Looks like we are getting a call on the emergency hero line. This is something that I had installed after Wolverine called back on episode 40.
Yes.
It's one of those things where we better pick this call up very quickly. So Janine, forward that over to us.
XVGM Radio, who is this and what can we do for you?
Hey there, it's Cammy. Listen, I got Bison on my tail, so I don't have a lot of time. I need you to play my theme so the fight goes my way.
Wait, don't you mean Balrog?
Or wait, Vega?
What? No, you bloody wankers. Just play my theme. Cheers to you.
Okay, alright. I've never heard somebody be as angry and yet as sweet sounding as Cammy?
Yeah, that sounds like Cammy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
So, let's play Cammy's theme, which is from Super Street Fighter 2. This came out in the arcade in 1983. It came out on the Super NES, as well as the Genesis, the Sharp X68000, and the FM Towns Marty. This came out in 1994 on those systems, and then it also came out on the Amiga in 1995. This track is by Shun Nishigaki and Isayo Abe.
Are you a busy mom on the go but also love your video games? Does not being able to beat a boss make you want to talk to a manager? Well, you're in luck. Introducing the Fujitsu FM Towns Karen. Designed for fussy moms on the go, the FM Towns Karen has a whopping 4.7 terahertz processor and uses state-of-the-art Redbook audio for the clearest, cleanest, freshest video game music ever. It's so clean you can see yourself in it. But that's not all. The controller has a child-safe lock on it, preventing messy hands from getting it grimy. Still not good enough? It paints your nails, gives free back rubs, and the CD tray doubles as a cup holder. Need a place to put your keys because you're a progressive mom who doesn't have a purse? The FM Towns Karen has you covered with its safety net tray, which extends from the side of the console, allowing you a safe place to put keys, gum wrappers, and used chapstick. Still not satisfied? Are you itching to speak to our manager? Well, it sounds like we've done our job. The FM Towns Karen, coming in 2020 from Fujitsu.
Hey, that was Super Street Fighter 2, which came out in the arcade in 1993, came out on the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, the Sharp X68000, and the FM Towns Marty, our system of the day, in 1994. And it came out in the Amiga in 1995. That was Cammy's theme by Shun Nishigaki and Isao Abe. So this version of the song, I believe, was also released on the 3DO as part of the Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo game. But everyone likes to say, ooh, the 3DO version's so good, but this version's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really good. Very well done. Probably my favorite version of Cammy's theme, up until I'd say, I think it's the arcade version that they did later for Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I think the better version, because that was using the CPS 2 sound font.
Oh,
style.
yep.
So a little bit more energetic. The guitars are a little chuggier. I was digging this. It's one of my favorite themes from the Super Street Fighter 2 game.
Yeah, no, this one was really kind of smooth.
Yeah.
I also, I haven't played Street Fighter in forever, so I'm not as familiar with the music as I used to be.
Okay.
But I don't remember there being music in that game that was as relaxing as this kind of felt. Like, this didn't feel like a fight theme. This felt like...
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
It's awesome. I was taken aback by how not, like, ready to fight this song felt.
It still feels like a Street Fighter song, but it's definitely a little bit more of like a jazzy, relaxed kind of vibe.
It's really cool. Like if you're watching a street fight in a lounge bar, you know.
Yeah. Regarding Cammy, I think she's a pretty cool character, and she's got an interesting backstory with like M. Bison.
Oh yeah.
And the whole thing where they like,
or was it Vega?
Taking over her mind and basically enslaving her, making her into his puppet. Have you ever seen the Street Fighter 2 cartoon?
A long time ago.
So there's a clip show on YouTube that basically gathers up like all the like most ridiculous parts of the Street Fighter 2 cartoon.
No.
It is hilarious to watch, but there's one line in particular that I just keep quoting after I saw it fairly recently. Guile and Chun-Li are hanging out in this base, this underground base or whatever, and then there's like a scene where like Cammy's there, and then like M. Bison comes up on the screen. It's a clip of her like talking to M. Bison, like basically, you know, her being enslaved by M. Bison or something like that. And so I guess she gets really upset by this and she storms out. But when she storms out, she's screaming, "Everything is lies! Everything is lies!" It's the funniest thing. You gotta track that video down if you can. Maybe we'll post it on the Facebook group or something. But yeah, it's super silly, that cartoon. But just lately, that's all I can think about when somebody mentions Cammy is everything is lies. So goofy. So, yeah, no, I really like this version. Again, this is the version that comes with that crazy controller. While we were talking a little bit earlier in the podcast, in between the breaks, I was like, you know what, I'm going to look up the FM Towns Marty. I'm curious, how much would it cost to get one? They are still crazy expensive.
No.
Like, just getting a working one is like a $500 to $700 affair.
Oh, so that's about what it cost when you get one
brand new.
Okay,
right,
yeah,
of course. Yeah. And the games are pretty expensive. I mean, we're talking like TurboGrafx level as far as like the really good stuff. Like, you know, I saw Splatterhouse on there for $200. I saw like Bubble Bobble on there for like $200 or whatever. Like every game has been like between $100 and like $400.
Jeez. And then this controller, the 6-button controller, we found for $250.
That's insanity.
Total insanity.
Yeah, a used second controller, like a turbo controller for the system, is going on eBay for right now like $80. Definitely not a cheap system to collect for.
Nope.
But there's also not a ton of games, so, you know. So Shun Nishigaki started off with Captain Commando in 1991 and followed it up with games like Super Street Fighter 2. Again, we talked a little bit about him earlier with Saturday Night Slam Masters, also known as Muscle Bomber. Punisher in 93 and Cadillacs and Dinosaurs in 93. Final game, Resident Evil Director's Cut in 2006, where they're credited for music data edit. Isao Abe, we've talked a lot about on the podcast. I know him probably best from Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. He also did like Dungeons and Dragons, The Tower of Doom in 93.
Ooh, yeah.
Street Fighter Alpha. Just like all that like Capcom guitar like that Setsuo Yamamoto did, he also worked on too.
Nice.
Street Fighter II: The World Warrior is his first credit as far as sound design goes. So on there with composer Yoko Shimomura.
Yep.
His final game was Devil May Cry 4 Refrain, where he's credited for the music composition. So
Nice.
He was also the guitarist on Beautiful Joe 2. Good stuff. So let's move on to your next pick.
Yeah, so this is a game called Blandia Plus. Yep.
Say that again. Blandia?
Blandia.
Ah.
I'm expecting a very...
So a very exciting game.
Yes. Absolutely exciting. This came out in the arcade in 1992 and then came out in the FM Towns in 1994. The track is just called track number 13 and was composed by Hisao Shiomi, Akira Inoue, and Manabu Namiki. Welcome back. That was track number 13 from Blandia Plus, the arcade and FM Towns 1992-1994 respective releases, composed by Hisao Shiomi, Akira Inoue, and Manabu Namiki.
You know, I've heard a lot of Manabu Namiki tracks, and I don't hear him in this one.
No?
No. But I really like the bombastic style and sound of this one, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I feel like it needs to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know? Like I was waiting for something to change, even if it was like a more lighthearted change.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't. And so that's why this track is, it's not bad, it's just disappointing to me.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It was fairly simplistic, and it starts out pretty strong, and then, like you said, it kind of doesn't really go anywhere super crazy.
Yeah.
I liked it for how it reminds me a lot of, like, kind of airship music.
Very hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in general, like, fantasy game on an airship.
Right.
Flying from place to place. Not at the end of the game where everything's doom and gloom and you need to save the world, but, like, maybe earlier on when you first get it, and like,
Maybe
hey,
when you first
this
get
is cool.
the ship. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what is Blandia Plus?
So Blandia itself takes place 5 years after another game called Gladiator.
Okay.
And it's a beat 'em up.
Okay.
This game is more of a fighting game, so it's in lines with things like Samurai Showdown.
Okay. Well, that kind of makes sense because, I mean, in the 90s, like around that time period, I mean, Street Fighter 2 was all the rage, you know?
Yeah, that's true,
We
too.
talked about Super Street Fighter 2 just a minute ago. And beat 'em ups were more of a thing of the, I'd say of the late 80s, early 90s.
That's fair. I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you had to really innovate and do something different to stand out as a beat 'em up at that period.
For sure.
But the plot of this game, like I said, takes place 5 years after the previous game, Gladiator.
Yep.
So in the great continent of Eurasia, and after the great swordsman Gyaranos downed the devilish warrior Gildas, peace returned to the continent for some time. Then 5 years later, while living in this continent of Eurasia, Gyaranos learns from somebody that he is fencing with that Gildas has been resurrected, so he has to once again hit the road, go to the Golden Castle, and find out the truth.
Yeah, by the looks of it, it looks like a Conan the Barbarian kind of like style game.
Yeah.
You know, the men and women are in loincloths, so.
But yeah, the arcade game was called Blandia, and the FM Towns port is Blandia Plus. And knowing me, it's probably like Blondia.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just being a jerk. Oh, in fact, it is Blondia because in Japan, it's Burandia. So I'm still going to call it Blandia
instant
because...
clarification, but at the same time, you just spanked yourself there.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna pull a hard corpse here, and this is Blandia from now on.
Oh, snap. Oh, man. I may have to give you a hard time about that one.
Oh, absolutely. I expect it. So these composers, though, I'll go really quick because they're not super major. Hisao Shiomi started doing sound effects in Ultraman Club, Tatake Ultraman Kyodai in 1992, and then went on to do sound in War of Arrow Project Meo in 93, Mobile Suit Gundam in 93 as well, and then Blandia in 94. Akira Inoue started out doing Double Dragon 3 The Rosetta Stone in 1990, and then also did the NES version Double Dragon 3 The Sacred Stones in 91.
Yep.
Did sound on Shodai Neketsu Koha Kunio-kun in 1992, Master Riders Club Battle Race 93, Blandia in 94, Gaia Seed in 96. He did narration, and then finally in 2005 he was credited as recording staff producer for Shinobido The Way of the Ninja. Manabu Namiki has a much bigger resume here. Started doing Thunder Dragon 2 in 1993 as a sound creator, music in Blandia in 1994, music composition in Bloody Roar 2 in 1998, Armed Police Bat Rider in 98, and then music composition in 2002 on Dodonpachi Dai-O-Jo. And then because there is so much here, we're just going to pick a couple other ones here. Metal Slug 6 in 2006, they did music composition. Trauma Center Under the Knife 2 in 2008.
Okay.
I liked that one. Contra Rebirth 2009, they did sound direction. Black Rock Shooter the game in 2011, they did music. And
they also did Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth. I don't know why that's not on here, but
they did a bunch of because Contra Rebirth, Gradius Rebirth.
Yep. Yeah, all those Rebirth games Manabu Namiki did.
Oh, that's really cool.
And he has like a really cool like retro Konami sound where he puts in like synth hits and everything.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's so good.
His last game was 2016's Caladrius Blaze.
Right. Yeah, that's a shmup, I believe.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move back into I believe this is the FM Towns, not the Marty.
Right.
This is Operation Wolf. This is track 4, and this version of the song, I believe, is exclusive to the FM Town. This came out in 1990, and unfortunately, we do not know the composer on this one, but this is a pretty wacky track, so let's give it a listen. Welcome back to our FM Towns and FM Towns Marty Exploratorium.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah, right? That was definitely not Blandia.
Nope.
That was Operation Wolf of all games. Like, what? Really? Seriously? That was track 4, and that was on the FM Towns in 1990. And we were not able to find any information on the composer, unfortunately. But, wow, what a track, huh?
Yeah.
That was wacky. The things that really stood out to me was the background stuff. Like, I really dug deep and listened to the background. At one point, there's what sounds like one of those rainwater type instruments.
Oh, like the big stick that you turn and
I think that, and then there was also like this weird
the didgeridoo.
Didgeridoo, yes. There was a didgeridoo, and then I also heard these weird like twinkly ones, like dun 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 dun. That I heard, and then there was another part after that which sounded pretty unique as well. Like it's this long series of like weird wacky instruments that kind of pile on top of this like really epic prog rock like wank fest.
Yeah, no, I really like the bass line that drives this entire thing. That
Sure.
do 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 do. Yeah, it's really really good. And I mean, again, I feel like most of the stuff that we played in this episode has been very bass groove oriented or heavy, which is awesome. I mean, I dig it for sure.
Yeah, no, lots of really really good music in this episode. Prog rock I really dig, but at the same time when it starts to get a little too wanky for me, where it's just like dudes jamming out on instruments, I sometimes check out a little bit. Not that I'm not engaged in it, but I just kind of groove to it. You know, like I'll be sitting there, I'll just be like, all right, I'm feeling this, you know, I'm vibing, but I won't really be understanding what's happening. I just know that there's somebody playing their instrument really well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I like solos, I like all sorts of stuff like that, but for whatever reason, when that style kind of starts appearing, I kind of check out a little bit. But I was digging this from start to finish. It's good stuff. So Operation Wolf, I mean, most people have played Operation Wolf. It's a Taito developed shooter where a big portion of the screen is devoted towards what's going on, where you are playing as Special Forces operative Roy Adams, who is trying to rescue hostages. And so you're invading the enemy territory. There's 6 different stages for the most part in most versions. This all takes place, I believe, during World War II, because you end up going to like a concentration camp.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting. But yeah, there's all these different like types of vehicles that you can shoot as well, like trucks and boats and armored vehicles and helicopters and all sorts of stuff like that. So first time I ever played Operation Wolf was on the actual system itself, and it really scared me. Like I legit got scared of the game because of the sound effects that it made. I remember being really young and playing this. You know, you get the machine gun and you get the Uzi or whatever, and you're going through and you're blasting all these enemies. But like the timer when you're running out of time is like really kind of spooky, and it's like this really loud abrasive noise when you're dying, and then it speeds up as you are dying. So it's like bana, 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 bana. It just keeps going harder and harder, and it's like really intimidating. So if you're like a kid playing this game, like it can be kind of traumatizing a little bit. Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, I've gone back since and played it, and you know, I'm fine. But I will always remember that first time in a movie theater playing Operation Wolf and just like freaking out. So yeah, that's my Operation Wolf story. I never really played that many versions of this game. I think I may have played the NES version back in the day, but for the most part, most of my experiences was on arcade. So it's like all the music in that game though is very like militant, you know what I mean? And so to hear this version of it, it doesn't match with any other version. That's why I think that it's exclusive to this soundtrack. I think they were just like, dude, go nuts, to the composer.
And go nuts they did.
Yes, they did. So speaking of the composer, we don't know any information, so we can't really talk about it. So that's it.
We should start a collection of all the games that we can't identify people on, and then when we come across one of them, we're like, other games that we don't know who did the composition is.
So, do you have any experience with Operation Wolf?
None.
None?
No.
Never played it?
I've heard the name. I've never played the game.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's worth checking out.
It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So let's move into our final track of our FM Towns and FM Towns Marty extravaganza. What do you got for us?
Final game on this list is Dokyusei 2. This was an FM Towns, PlayStation 1, Saturn, and Super Famicom game that came out in 1995. The track is called In the Mood, and it is by Shinichiro Sato of Tease Music. Welcome back. That was In the Mood from Dokyusei 2, the FM Towns, PlayStation 1, Saturn, and Super Famicom 1995 released game composed by Shinichiro Sato of Tease Music.
Okay.
Bring it down for the end, kind of going out with something a little bit mellow.
Super chill, but still a really driving bass line.
Yeah,
really
very prominent there.
Very fat, thick tone to that bass line. And I gotta say, the bass kind of won me over on that one. The rest of the track was kind of ho-hum, but the bass at least kept me engaged throughout that entire track.
I mostly liked this one for just the vibe that it had. I could see myself kind of just sitting out in the yard under a tree, sipping like an iced tea or an Arnold Palmer, or what's that other one?
Arnold Palm Tree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Hammock.
Yes, our good friend XVGM Radio making a wonderful drink suggestion.
Yep.
Green tea
and lemonade.
Lemonade, yes.
Yep. But it's kind of the vibe that I get from this. I mean, we're currently in the cold weather time here in New England.
Very breezy track.
Yep. And this feels more like sort of a late summer, fall track.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely get that vibe.
Reminding me of warmer times. So this game, Dokyusei 2.
It's like a dating sim,
It
right?
is. It's exactly that. It's a dating sim.
Yep.
Published by Elf Corporation.
Okay.
And as I said earlier, across a number of different consoles. The fact that it was on the Super Famicom tells me that there had to have been multiple versions of this game, only because you know what Nintendo will and won't allow on their console.
True.
And taking a look at screenshots and whatnot for this game, if you are looking at things like the PC 98 version, this is definitely an eroge game.
Yeah.
Which makes me believe that the SNES version is decidedly not an eroge game.
Right.
So it's likely been an edited version of this.
Oh, for sure.
So this is a game that, depending on what version you get, and your age, you should or should not play. Very complicated stuff here, but
good to know.
The overall sort of plot of the game, you are a male high school student. During the winter vacation of your last year in high school, you have to choose one girl to be your girlfriend. There are 15 choices in this game. Some of these are classmates, some of them are just women in the city, but the object of the game is to go through, meet the girls, date them, and decide who you want to be your girlfriend.
Is it all like women who are age appropriate to this dude, or is it like...
The list of things here doesn't say who you can and cannot date, but there are women here that are named as mothers of other characters in the game.
Oh.
So maybe?
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really do dating sims. They tend to be more questionable than anything else. Like there are always characters that are drawn to look underage and then, presented to not to be underage in the game.
Right.
And there's always just the things like, I'm a high school student. They don't usually have the greatest stories. It's usually just a dating simulator to get you through and like give you nice things to look at.
Sure. So the composer on this one,
Shinichiro Sato.
right, worked for T's Music.
Yeah. So they started out doing sound production in 1993's Super Air Zonk Rockabilly Paradise, and they have a somewhat extensive resume here. Obviously, working for T's Music, you get a lot of good stuff.
Sure.
So we'll bounce around here. They did music on Record of Lotus War in 1994, F1 Challenge in 1995. Mm-hmm. They did music as part of T's Music in Gun Griffin 2 in 1998, Virtua Athlete 2000 in 2000, Monster Bass in 2000, Metal Dungeon in 2002 they did music on, Dino Crisis 3 in 2003, Blood Will Tell, Tezuka Osamu's Dororo in 2004.
Oh, right, the PS2 game.
Yep. And Wing Island in 2006, and finally Dragoneer's Aria in 2007.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, then. So, favorite track of the evening. We have a lot of music here.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go first this time.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. I am going to go with definitely 100% that Galaxy Force 2 track. I love me some Freestyle. So, I've actually been holding onto this track for a really long time. And I've been meaning to play it, but I held on to it for the sake of the FM Towns Marty and FM Towns episode. So.
Nice.
But yeah, that's my pick, followed up with, I'm going to say Psychic Detective series, and then I think your Blandia Plus track.
That's fair.
The one with the funky bass line.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually think I'm going to go with that Suguru track from Twin Cobra. It was it was really, really jammy and dancey. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to follow that up with your Psychic Detective Volume 5 track.
Cool. Very cool.
Very good stuff.
Yeah.
So, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Alex Messenger, Scott McElhone, Cam Worma, Chris Hart, Dan Lawton, Chris Murray, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Jordan and Anson Davis, Chris Myers, Llama Adam, Jeremy Rutz, Peter Panda, Bedroth, Nick Davis, Brad Austin, Mixmaster, and the Autistic Gamer 89. If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/XVGM Radio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
And if you'd like what you've heard, please consider giving us a rating on iTunes and a review.
You can also join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at www.facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks, or just talking about the podcast itself.
And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both of those sites is @XVGM Radio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links will be in the show notes.
I want to also give a quick shout out to Mrs. Popka, the wife of my good friend, the Dali Popka, and she did the voiceover for Cammy on this episode. So thank you very much for doing that. She didn't actually have anything that she wanted to promote of her own, but she suggested that I promote Dali Popka. So you can check him out on YouTube. His page is for Viridian Flashback. It is an Xbox review channel. He does awesome videos. I definitely recommend you check them out if you have any interest in the original Xbox. And we'll leave links in the show notes. All right, before we get to the next 2 weeks, just a friendly reminder again, get us your tracks. Go to xvgmradio@gmail.com. Send us an email with the headline or the subject, episode 50. and give us a track that you want to play on the episode. Do it now, do it fast, do it hard and awesome and good.
We should also mention that we expect we will probably get more requests than we have slots for songs.
Right.
So when that inevitability happens, just know that we're going to do basically random picking.
Right.
And we will reach out to folks directly to say, hey, your track has been selected. So, and we'll just go from there.
Yep. And if your track was not selected, have no fear. We will be holding on to it and releasing it for another future Fan Picks episode, whenever that may be.
Yep.
So, in 2 weeks, Justin, I think we should bring on a composer. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
Make it sound like it's your idea right here, right now.
Right. So, we are bringing in a composer for a fairly recent game that came out called Valfaris. And we are going to be talking with former Celtic Frost member Kurt Victor Bryant, who used to be in a heavy metal band Celtic Frost. This is a head-banging episode, so ladies and gents, unless you are a heavy metal fan, stay far away from this episode. Or
don't tell people to stay away from our episodes. Give it a listen and see how you feel.
Okay. I'm just warning some people who may not realize that it's going to be a banger. So metalheads need apply, and everyone else, show some interest.
Yeah, no, maybe. I mean, if you're not into heavy metal, so that game is very artistically, visually, audibly, very heavy metal themed.
Yes.
I played a little bit of it when you came over a few weeks ago. I need to play some more because it was really, really fun. But yeah, I mean, if you're not into heavy metal, you probably may not have as much fun with this episode. But I will say our composer interviews tend to be pretty interesting. So even if you're not interested in the music that much, you may be interested in what we're talking about, the game itself. I mean, if you can't stand the music for whatever reason, you can always just mute it and put your own music on.
And we're going to be asking Kurt all kinds of questions too about his previous band Celtic Frost as well. So really cool stuff. So tune in 2 weeks. But in the meantime, this is Mike
and Justin
signing off for XVGM Radio. But there's also not a ton of games, so, you gotta pick your battles when you choose them. I don't know. Choosing moms, choose the FM Towns Marty?
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Armed Police Bat Rider 98.
Bath Rider?
Bat Rider.
Oh.
Like Meatloaf rides a bat out of hell.
I thought it was Bath Rider, like somebody riding a bathtub.
Dressed as a policeman?
Yeah.
Armed Police Bath Rider.
That would not be Blandia.
That would not be Blandia at all.
Not at all. Are we speaking with, and what can we do for you?
Hello, this is Halcyon Rulier.
Rulier?
We say things differently in space.
Yes.
Hello, this is Halcyon Rulier.
Yeah.